What is up, and welcome, foolish mortals, to another episode of That Game Rules, a gaming and retro podcast where every week we break down an old video game and all the pop culture that surrounds it. I'm your host, Scuba Steve. Thanks for tuning in, and today we're talking spooky, we're getting scary, we're talking a top 30, maybe a top 10. Maybe it might be your favorite NES game ever, because we're talking about the OG original Castlevania. It's a unique game for the NES. They went with a style and theme that wasn't very popular back in that time, super popular nowadays. A game that spawned its own genre of video games itself. So we're going to get into all of that, but first, let's break down this show. Every week here, we go back in time and talk old movies, shows, toys, and all the stuff that we grew up with. Then we'll get into the game itself. We'll go over all the juicy stuff there, box art, manual, characters, levels, music. We're going to check out some comments and reviews and a whole bunch of other stuff there. And finally, we'll give this game some awards, slap a ranking on it, and get out of here before the sun comes up. Send me your messages at thatgamerules@gmail.com and sign up for the newsletter at thatgamerules.com. Go ahead, leave a rating, leave a comment on anything you're listening to. I appreciate it. We've got lots of fun stuff to unpack today because I freaking love Halloween. It is my favorite time of year. It is my favorite holiday. So things have been getting spooky around here. We got tons of decorations out. We usually throw a big, huge Halloween party that unfortunately this year is not going to happen. There's just too much stuff going on, and I've still got a giant freaking hole in my garage from a tree earlier this summer that I don't want to get into. That's a whole video game I don't want to play, is how to fight insurance and get your crap covered from your policies. That's a terrible video game. But anyways, I'm ready for all the other fun stuff, the corn mazes, the farms, the pumpkins, all the stuff that we do every year. Even though the kids are getting older, we're winding down on as far as like trick-or-treating and stuff. They're getting a bit older, but we're still gonna rock it out this year for sure. Any of the haunted houses I can make it to, and then whatever I can do to get into my kids' candy while they're sleeping Halloween night, and then we'll call it in October there. But I got more scary games lined up after this one. We'll break down this guy here soon. Specific gaming memories of Castlevania. I mean, this came out in the U.S. in '87. So I was just a little youngin' then, but I definitely played this growing up. I remember watching my stepdad play it. It is tough. It's well known to be a super hard game, and NES tough is where this kind of game falls into that category. And it's one of those games, a lot of games that you played when you were younger, you were fine just playing video games as a kid. So I think I played, the first level or two of this many times when I was young, until eventually you get to that age where you can handle the controller and stuff, and you're talking like 6 or 7. And even then, just not getting far on this game at all. But it didn't seem like we cared. There was just something about playing video games, not even trying to go past levels, just having fun playing games as a kid and jumping around. That was all it took for us back then. It was a simpler time. So we're going to get into a time warp. We're going to get back to 1987. But in order to do that, we got to get up to 88. Let's do it.
Have enough road to get up to 88.
Roads? Where we're going, we don't need roads.
Oh, I love these old 80s time warps. It's only when I get into these old Nintendo games that we get to get back into the 80s, a time of big hair and big shoulder pads. And what else about the 80s I can think of? Seatbelts were optional as far as being a kid. You could just lay across the whole back window and take a nap if you wanted to back then. The other big thing I remember was just smoking. I remember fast food places had like ashtrays, and that's not a thing anymore. And just, it's weird because the first thing you would always hear back then, and this is even just going into restaurants with my parents or grandparents back then, was the first thing the hostess or host would ask you is smoking or non-smoking. and you would pick that section, and I don't know why that was a thing, because all the smoke just drifted over to the entire restaurant anyway. It was just a weird time. You watch all the 80s movies, you get back to the 80s. The weirdest one for me, I'm just going off on a tangent now about smoking. It's like the sci-fi movies. So they're always in space, in aliens, and all these movies like smoking in the big spaceships in space, and that doesn't seem safe, or that's putting a lot of work on your air filters and all that stuff going on up there. A doctor's office, malls, just walking around, everyone just, man, that was just the thing to do in the 80s. But it's gross and disgusting now, so don't smoke and don't vape and don't do all that crap if you're a young listener. Just wait till you're 18 and then go have fun. So moving along, we got a sponsor here. We're in 1987. We're talking Halloween stuff. We're talking spooky. We're talking a lot of vampires today. Today's sponsor is a real product. You can go buy it in a store right now. Let's hear it.
Time to go down to the basement for some more hauntingly delicious Count Chocula cereal.
Don't look in the basement.
Those eyes are looking at me. Think I'll get some fruity Frankenberry from the cupboard.
Don't look in the cupboard.
Oh, those eyes, they move.
Now the spooky, delicious part of your complete breakfast is even spookier.
Now Chocula's eyes really move. So did Frankenberry's.
He is looking at you, kids.
So I remember that specific commercial myself, and that was when they were talking the moving eyes. It had the little, vinyl eyeball things where you moved it side to side, or if you were walking down the aisle, their eyes would like follow you on their Count Chocula boxes. And also, so we got the Count Chocula, the man himself. We got his monster cereals, his monster buddies. You got Frankenberry. We got Boo Berry, the first blueberry cereal ever. And then you got Fruit Brute, Yummy Mummy, Carmella Creeper, a few of the less knowns. Carmella's new. Fruit Brute, he's like the werewolf, and then, Yummy Mummy, of course. These were introduced, Count Chocula himself, back in 1971, so he is an OG, re-released throughout the years, still in stores, usually just comes out in October now, around Halloween. Excuse me. Used to have some sweet prizes as well, because cereals used to back then. Posters, paint sets, some sweet vinyl figures you can find out there, or some thin little discs, some thin phonograph records back in 1979. You could even play, featuring tunes like the Monsters Go Disco and Monster Adventures in Outer Space. So good times. Another cereal sponsor. There'll probably be a lot more of those, because I'm a freaking child still, and I like cereal. So let's move on to some movies from 1987. We got some big ones here. We've got The Princess Bride. I heard that was on in the background all the time. Of course, I'm an old nerd now, so I appreciate it. But I mean, when I was 3 when it came out, I wasn't, super into it, but I love The Princess Bride. I was watching probably more than that at my younger age was Harry and the Hendersons. That was on a lot back in the day, the show and the movie. And then Disney's Brave Little Toaster. Back then they're still releasing some weird and unique movies, and that one kind of slips around a little bit, but I remember Brave Little Toaster. And while we're in Halloween here, let's talk some sweet Halloween movies that came out that were on in the background as well, or maybe I was catching on that late night HBO that I wasn't supposed to be watching. The first Hellraiser came out. We're on Nightmare on Elm Street #3. I went through a big phase, probably 10-ish. Maybe I was 10 to 12. Just a big old horror movie binge. That's all we got from Blockbuster. We're just The Nightmare Before Elm Streets. Just me and my friends, my sister, and like her friends, and we're just watching these old movies, scaring the crap out of ourselves. So good times there. And then shout out to a dad movie. If there ever was a dad movie, a movie you're watching with your dad that you're young enough to know that you're too young to be watching these movies. And this particular one I saw at a very young age, because my dad would just apparently couldn't wait to show it to me and my sister back then, and that's Full Metal Jacket. If you know that movie, I mean, it's a really good movie. It's dramatic. It's a Vietnam, it's a war movie. Lots of intense themes and situations going on in that movie. Real intense when you're like 8 years old watching that movie or something, however old I was. I can't play any of those clips on this show, for sure. TV shows, 1987. This is when we are in the height of just the best, the cartoons. The cartoons were coming out, and then they were making toys of those cartoons, and they were making video games of those toys, or vice versa. And the toy came out, and they made that into a game, and then they made it into a movie, and it's just all this cross-play between all these sweet toys and shows and all these things we loved back then. So, 1987, I mean, I've said it 100 times before on a lot of other time warps. At least to finally get to 1987 when Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles came out. That was the show I was watching. We had a lot of other stuff. You had your G.I. Joe, you had your Transformers, you had a lot of that going on for a couple years now, but I guess being like 3, 4, 5, the age I was watching Ninja Turtles, probably just stuck to me more, just being more kind of silly than just your G.I. Joe and those kind of shows. But it's also coming off the heels of even like the older cartoons. So there was a lot of runs of like the Flintstones and the Jetsons and all these kind of 60s and 70s cartoons are still, they're all on there. Those are all the reruns you're watching. So we're watching a lot of that, a lot of like Yogi Bear and still just some of the older ones. Of course, like your Bugs Bunny and your older stuff there too. So you had TMNT, the 80s one coming out. We had Jetsons Meet the Flintstones, a little cartoon crossover action happening. And I mentioned G.I. Joe and Transformers, but also 1987, we had this gem come out.
Life is like a hurricane here in Duckburg. Race cars, lasers, aeroplanes. It's a duck blur. Might solve a mystery.
Oh man, I'm just dancing in my chair listening to that. I can't wait to do that game because the NES DuckTales frickin' track is banging too. That's one of those sweet old cartoon 8-bit tunes we get to hear. We're going to do DuckTales someday, definitely. I freaking love that game. Let's talk some toys from 87. It's going to kind of match the TV shows we're talking because all our toys are coming from our shows. So we had Transformers, G.I. Joe, all the OGs, kind of the original back then as far as Transformers with guys. We had Megatron and Optimus Prime, obviously, but then we got your OGs, your Starscream, Grimlock, Bumblebee, Ratchet, Grapple, Blur, Jazz, just tons and tons of robots in disguise. But we'll shout out some of the girl toys back then too, because the Cabbage Patch Dolls, those were banging back in the 80s, and then they released in 1987 because they got to release different series and different types of toys to keep things hot and popular. They released the Preemies edition, and they were like smaller miniature Cabbage Patch Dolls, and they called them Preemies. And maybe something they're not gonna do today. But those are out there. I feel like, is that offensive? I don't know. It might be sensitive to some to release a tiny doll and call it a preemie edition. So anyway, also Care Bears back then, real hot TV show, the toys, all that stuff. And then you got your 10 original OG Care Bears. I remember them. We had Bedtime Bear, Birthday Bear, Cheer Bear, Friend Bear, Funshine Bear, Good Luck Bear, Grumpy Bear, Love-A-Lot Bear, Tender Heart Bear, and Wish Bear. And shout out to Funshine Bear. That's my favorite. I don't know why. Probably just because of the word Funshine. Just sounds cool. Talking more toys while we're talking weird editions of figures and such. I'm going to break down a couple of the sweet series of the Ninja Turtle figures, dolls, whatever you want to call them back then. You had your main OG line. Of course, all these things are out there and worth, tons of money, I guess, depending on which set and which figure and all these things, but there's definitely some rare ones and some weird ones out there. But you had your basics, and then we had some sweet lines coming out for the TMNT line. We had the pizza tossing turtles. So they had like a little contraption on kind of on their stomach, like they were carrying a pizza box or something like that. But you could put your little plastic disc pizza in there and then push a button to shoot it out. So we had the pizza tossing turtles, just flinging pizzas from their stomachs. We had the Bodacious Birthday line with characters like Raph the Magician and Clown dressed up Michelangelo, because kids love clowns. So if you want like a mix-up of like Michelangelo and like John Wayne Gacy, then that is the figure for you, children. We also had the historical line featuring tons of offensive characters like Yankee Doodle Raph and other offensive stereotypes of indigenous culture. So there's like a historical line with, yes, Indian Ninja Turtles. If you were to use the language of us back in the 80s, that's what we had there. We also had rock and rollin' turtles. We had characters like Rappin' Mikey and Punker Don, because we're getting into the 90s, and then we're coming up into our rad phase. Gross is cool, and all these things are coming up in the 90s where it's cool to be a punk rocker and all this stuff coming up. The turtles are trying to jump on that bandwagon. We had the Disguise Turtles with like Raph the Space Cadet and Surfing Michelangelo. just more reasons to just have insane turtles. And then all the way down to the Sports Turtles line with TD Tossin' Leo and Slam Dunkin' Don. Good times. All those are out there. Take a look at them if you see them. Find them at the yard sales and garage sales. Swoop those things up. I could have bought, my buddy had a garbage bag, like a literal black garbage bag when I worked in the kitchen of excuse me, of his old figures from when he was a kid. And he was like, oh yeah, I'm just gonna get rid of them or give them away or something. And then he was like, and I was like $20 or whatever it was like $25 he came up with for this garbage bag of Ninja Turtle figures. And I said I wanted it, and then he sold it to someone else like the next day. So that made me a sad panda. But anyway, a few video games, 1987, because it's all coming out. You're going to get a lot of legacy games. We got Final Fantasy 1. We've got Zelda. I mean, that's, North America, so it probably came out like 30 years earlier in Japan or whatever they got with their weird Final Fantasies between NA and Japan back then. But we got Zelda 2. You've got Mega Man 1. So we're in the Mega Man timeline of Mega Man 1. We got Contra, Double Dragon, Street Fighter. There's just no numbers after any of those. Those are all just the OGs. Well, we'll take a look at this box art, and we'll take a look at the manual, and we'll take a look at a bunch of other stuff. So let's do it.
Now, I know you love video games, and I asked the clerk which is the one every boy wants.
You got me. Oh, yeah.
So when we are talking box art here, we got Castlevania, 1987 in the US, 1986 in Japan, for the NES, made by Konami, and the box art is cool, it's unique. It is not very Nintendo-like. It's getting some darker themes. Got a little bit of blood on the cover they managed to get away with. So when we're looking at the cover, it's got the big gray kind of border and all your other kind of Nintendo seals on it. But the drawing itself, it does look kind of like an old, like a sweet old movie poster of like the old Monster Universe monsters from back then. And the picture itself is actually based off of a painting. I think if his name is right here, Frank Frazetta. So while it may look a little silly today, the Frank Frazetta inspired box art from the first Castlevania skews the standard cute and cuddly NES aesthetic for something a little more dramatic. You got the blood dripping from Dracula's mouth. It's particularly edgy for the NES cover art. Over time, the Belmonts would get a lot less beefy than this depiction of Simon, obviously inspired by the then recent Conan the Barbarian movie, starring a certain future and former California governor, the Governator of California, as it were. So the box art's cool. Again, it's like beefy. He looks kind of like Conan back there. So That's not really the route they go with the Belmonts later in the series. It's just a family of vampire hunters. But the box art looks good. The description on the back is really cool. We're going to go over the manual description itself once we get into that. But before we get into that, we'll get into a little bit of development history that I could find looking up Castlevania here. So it was developed alongside a home computer game called Vampire Killer, featuring the same characters and settings. Yeah, I never played that, so I think it's like a different game for the computer. But a couple of computer games I do remember from way back in the day. I remember playing Ninja Gaiden on the computer at my grandpa's house, which is really tough with your arrow keys and your space bar jumping, but for some reason we had it on a little floppy disk, so I got to play that. And then it was just the old free ones. It was your solitaire, your minesweeper, and your ski free, if you remember that one, like the little guy skiing down the hill, and then the Yeti would always run out of nowhere and eat you. So shout out to Ski Free. And then back in school, if you remember the real old ones, the old green screen computers, sometimes they'd have to wheel them into class. You'd have one or two or three of them. Was a word muncher and number muncher. I don't remember. It's just like a little guy, and the answer, he would go eat the number on the screen. So shout out to word muncher, and of course the OG Oregon Trail. I will do an episode on Oregon Trail, and I think when I do an episode of Oregon Trail, I want to like play it live on the episode as we're doing it. So I think that'll be fun. Well, I'll just die from dysentery maybe. So continuing Castlevania stuff, directed by, sorry, name pronunciation, Hitoshi Akamatsu. That's not too bad. And he was real inspired by old scary monster movies, and it shows. He said the music and visuals were made to feel cinematic, which they do. He said he wanted players to feel like they were in a classic horror film. A couple of notes here too. They originally wanted multi-directional whips, but of course we know that wouldn't come until Super Castlevania 4 on the SNES, and that whip's crazy on that game. But yeah, they wanted to go all directions. Would be nice. Would have been nice for just some angles and an up whip or something. But that's all part of the hard fun of this game. Also, I'm sad here reading this one. Items that didn't make it in the game. So we have tons of sub-weapons, but some of the ideas they had that didn't make it was garlic, wooden stakes, and an item that turns you into a werewolf. Freaking what?
Shut up and take my money!
I would have loved to have seen that. That would have been sweet. I haven't played any like super recent Castlevania games, but I'm sure just based on the franchise and how well it does and how many people like it, that they probably, and based on how much I love Halloween and dark themes and all this stuff, that I am going to get into some Castlevania games for sure, because it looks like they just went all in and got super sweet on a lot of the gameplay and themes. And this is one of those games that it's like, man, I beat myself up playing this and just like loved every not every minute of it, but it is one of those things. It's one of those one more time games. It's one of those I put the controller down, like I'm just so angry at it, but it's like 4 minutes later I'm like, all right, pick the controller back up and like go. I played all the OG games. You got your Marios. I was a bit more into some of that platforming. I guess the cuter stuff, Mario, your Mega Man, even down to like Metroid. I played more, Kirby. So when you're just talking all these multiple game sequels like from the old systems, like Castlevania just wasn't, even like Contra I played more. So I don't know why Castlevania slipped by, but I'm ready to just like burn. I'm like I will be a Castlevania nut soon, and maybe like it's big in speed running. I got some notes on that later. Just the groups, it's just got a whole subgroup of people just all about Castlevania, and maybe now I'm all about that lifestyle, so I want to join the Castlevania club. Before we get back into the game, let's take a little break and let's talk about, because we're fighting Dracula in this game, let's talk about some famous TV and movie vampires, if I can come up with any. We got your OG Nosferatu, the old, super old movie. Well, I think they just made a remake too. But I mean, that's your OG Dracula guy there. We got Bram Stoker's Dracula, of course, the movie I used to see on HBO when I wasn't supposed to. We got vampires in the Marvel Universe because we've got Blade, the half-breed vampire hunter. Oh, we got Van Helsing. That's been done a lot. Mainly I've seen the movie with Hugh Jackman. Twilight, we got our sparkle vampires there. And then, like, funny TV show, you got What We Do in the Shadows. You've got Morbius in the Marvel universe as well, the Spider-Man villain. We got a unique one here from my childhood. Take a listen.
In the heart of Transylvania, in the vampire hall of fame, yeah, there's not a vampire any other. He won't bite beast the man, cause he's a vegetarian again, and things never runs plan for. If you're looking for some fun, you can always count upon the one they call
Count Duckula.
Oh, that's right. Another freaking duck reference on this show. That's freaking Count Duckula. If we would have got Darkwing Duck, we would have had the Duckfecta of all the ducks from my childhood on this show. But anyway, that was Count Duckula. Keep moving. Underworld movies. What's your name? Yeah, like those movies. Buffy the Vampire Slayer, the OG, Sarah Michelle Gellar. Supernatural, they're all over that show, I'm sure. My wife watches it. Old school movies, even Jim Carrey was a vampire back in Once Bitten. Daybreakers was a sweet movie. 30 Days of Nights. Daybreakers was really cool. If you haven't seen it, it's a vampire movie, and maybe it gets... I never even heard of it until I just caught it on TV, but it's got real actors. It's got, Ethan Hawke, is that his name? And then what's his name from Jurassic Park? Sam Neill. So it's got real people, but it's a weird, vampires have taken over, and they're just, running out of blood, but it's a society of vampires. So it's weird because it's they wake up and then they just put blood in their coffee and they go to their office job at night, and the cars are rigged to drive with TV screens instead of windows if they're driving during the day. So it's just if vampires took over and then went back to normal and everybody had crappy jobs and stuff like that. So that's a fun movie too. Of course, Dusk Till Dawn, Lost Boys, and then a couple of shout outs to the OG Grandpa Munster from the Munsters, and then the man himself.
Sometimes I sit and count all day.
Count, Von Count.
Sometimes I get carried away.
Did he not teach us all the thrills of counting?
Slowly getting
1 bat,
faster.
2 bat, 3 bats.
Faster.
So of course, Count Von Count, he's the OG. That's the Sesame Street Count, y'all. So just a couple of famous vampires. We're not fighting him in this game, but we've got Dracula later down the road. So let's get back into this game. Let's talk controls and let's talk the manual. Let's take a look at the introduction from the manual. Here we go. It says, "Good evening. Step into the shadows of the deadliest dwelling on earth. You've arrived at Castlevania and you're here on business to destroy forever the curse of the evil Count. Unfortunately, everybody's home this evening. Bats, ghosts, every kind of creature you can imagine. You'll find them all over the place if they don't find you first, because you've got to get through 6 monstrous floors before you even meet up with the master of the house. Your magic whip will help, and you'll probably find a weapon or two along the way, but once you make it to the tower, can you count on a duel to the death? The Count has waited 100 years for a rematch. He's ready. Are you?" So they even tease it there. This game, the OG Castlevania, I believe in the timeline is number 6. So of course they can release these games and then go back and make prequels, make sequels, change timelines. Looking at you, Zelda. But in this case, the guy even starts to tease these things in the game, in the story, as far as this having a rematch essentially from 100 years before. So again, this is number 6. I think the first one might even be a Game Boy game type of thing, because there's a bunch of those. Of course, there's 3 Castlevanias on the NES. But it's cool even, spoiler alert, when you beat Dracula at the end of this game, like you see, and maybe I'll mention it again at that point, but you see like this as he loses his human form, you see essentially his body pieces fly across the screen, and then those are supposed to represent the pieces of Dracula that you need to go collect in Castlevania 2, and that's also because Simon gets like bitten, I think, during the Dracula fight, so he needs to be healed. And that's kind of the storyline of Castlevania 2. So that's cool. He was like setting up like sequels stuff, almost like MCU freaking end credit teasers and stuff there. He's getting ahead of the game on that, the director of this game. Manual control wise, the NES brick, nice and easy. No freaking 30 Kirby moves they make on us here. You're moving is one thing. Anyway, you got your D-pad, you're moving. You're going to try and go diagonal up some stuff that may or may not work. You got your A button to jump, you got your B button to attacks, and then other than that, your start. Select's not used at all. It's always just that dead button sitting over there. Once they realized you can go, Nintendo, that you could use the D-pad up and down to select on menus, essentially, the select button just kind of went away. Back to that control. So if you want to use your sub-weapons, you have to push up and B, and that can be annoying if you're on stairs already, pushing up and stuff like that. And other than that, if you want to jump forward, you got to make sure you are pressing forward, or you will just jump up and you will fall like a 300-pound sack of potatoes. He's wearing some leaded. He's got the boots from the water temple. I think he's wearing those to keep himself on the floor. Excuse me. I love the art of the manual. It's got like every creature drawn, and they're drawn so cool. It's drawn like these classes. It's drawn like old. It looks like third grade stuff, like the stuff you would be coloring in, or there were those learn how to draw books from back then that were like the cartoon characters, and they all look like that. And they do fairly represent how they look on screen, so it's cool there. No descriptions or anything for all your creatures, but just cool drawings, and then all the points they're worth, because back then developers still thought that any gamers cared about points at all. I don't think we do. You see speedrunners out there, but I don't see speedrunners who had the highest points when they were speedrunning. Moving on there, it looks good. There's tons of scary gothic sprites to check out. We've got your weapons list and all that stuff, and these I will call different things throughout this episode, probably because they're labeled different in the manual. They're called different things online. I've called them different things in my head since I was a kid, so it's one of those things. But it is noted that the weapon in here is called your whip, because it's also called like vampire killer, I think. It's like the name of it, but the power-ups you pick up are called morning stars, and those aren't whips as much as they are like a big spiky ball on the end of a chain, and it's kind of like what your whip turns into. But I guess we still consider it a whip and not a morning star. But I just thought that was interesting, because I always thought morning stars were just like interesting weapons and an interesting name that sounds a lot prettier than what that weapon probably does to a person. So along from controls, the manual, we'll talk a little bit about the music, and we're going to get right into our gameplay and stuff. So it's got some of the best NES music ever created. Listen to some of these track names. You've got the Vampire Killer, Stalker, Wicked Child, Walking on the Edge, Heart of Fire, Out of Time, Nothing to Lose, Black Knight, all just sweet names that you actually went through and made some sweet names. And if you're going to try to make like a cinematic game, then you got to have some cinematic music, and this game has it in spades. Like every track is really sweet. Of course, the first one we know, and they've been remixed down the road. You got people still playing these things in like symphony concerts and stuff nowadays, like they do Zelda music, some Mega Man stuff. So people are loving the music, and we're going to keep it going by playing some sweet music and heading into some game vitals. Take a listen. I like that one. That might be my favorite track of the game. No music awards this week, but that one will be my favorite track. I forget what level that is, but when you're getting beat up over and over again, it does not hurt to have some sweet music helping you make it through that, helping you emotionally, some good music. So let's talk straight game chat. Let's get into some characters, some stories, some levels. When you're looking at the screen itself as you're playing, we're back to basic Nintendo. So it's got your health life. It's got your boss health life whenever you get there. Your score, of course, back then. Your timer's ticking down on you. I never really had issues running out of time. I have issues at dying because I'm terrible. But then it's got your ammo, as it were. Your hearts are ammo in this game, and then your sub weapon and your lives, all there at the top of the screen. But you won't be paying attention to the top of the screen. You'll be paying attention to the freaking Medusa heads and all sorts of stuff flying at you. Or if you're like me, you're paying attention to the art in the background and then dying by a freaking bat or a raven. So the cool thing, if I forget about the game, at least in this feed you your lunch game, is that infinite continues. So you have a certain amount of lives, but then if you make it to that stage of the level 6 blocks, they're sometimes referred to. At least if you can make it to that one, you'll start off where you had killed the last boss or something, and then you can just keep replaying that. But the hard part about that is whether or not you have like your sub weapons and your whip powered up. But we'll get into all that later. I'm just kind of going over the screen there. We're talking Simon Belmont, originally named Peter Dante, and that name was based on some classic horror film actors, but they went with Simon Belmont, 22-year-old vampire hunter, descendant of the legendary hero Christopher Belmont, and Simon Belmont weighs about 800 pounds. So that's a fact in the manual there. It's not, but I mean, it's talked about a lot. I mean, it sure feels like this guy, he's got no float to him. He is freaking jumping and hitting that ground hard. So, besides Simon, of course, we got Dracula, the Prince of Darkness, the Count himself, the bad guy. So that's it as far as characters go and story. This game develops quite a story. I think it's got 25 games now, maybe more, depending on remakes and stuff, but so it's just got a big storyline now, and that's why I want to kind of play these and get down the road, because I think some of the PlayStation ones are supposed to be real sweet. What is the one everyone talks about? I mean, I know there's like Bloodlines that I'll play. I think is that like a Genesis kind of remake type of thing, but what is it, Symphony of the Night, I think. So I want to play some sweet Castlevania down the road. So let's break it down. We'll talk enemies, bosses, and weapons as we go. The game has 6 zones, with a few screens per zone, essentially 3 kind of levels per zone. As far as when you go through a door, you start out the game with your little spaghetti noodle whip. And other than that, it's got sweet looking graphics and sweet looking music, and let's just get right into it. The game opens up. The title screen looks sweet. It's supposed to look cinematic, like a film reel. So it looks cool, and you get right into your quote-unquote tutorial level, which is just kind of your walk up to the castle, in the castle courtyard there. No enemies, but this is where you can play around with your controls, jump around, move your whip around. It's where you learn you're going to break your candles, collect your stuff. So that is it for the tutorial. It's like 5 candles walking up to the castle. But anytime you don't, so you start out with your little spaghetti noodle, and anytime you don't have, your upgraded whip, it's pretty much going to throw those upgrades at you like right off the bat. And that's that little Morning Star looking graphic. So that's one of your power-ups right there, is your whip power-up. There's 2 of them. You're going to want your whip powered up like at all times. Your first power-up increases its strength, turns it into its little chain with its ball thing, and then your second power-up increases the length. So you want to get those. And then you want to get your sub-weapons. You want to start banking your ammo, so collect as many hearts as you can. Those will all go away after you beat the boss, but you can bank up on those. And as you're going, just take a look at the background. Just don't die doing it like I do. But man, I don't remember like these details as a kid. Like I knew the game was there. I knew it was tough, and I kind of vaguely remembered in my head. But it was like I just pictured like a pillar and a staircase and just like a solid black background, and it's like that's not what this game is at all. It's like every screen from like corner to corner is just packed full of detail, and like all these old monster movie details, just all the decaying castle and all these like scenes that replicate a lot of these old movies and stuff. So definite shout out to the details. I'll keep shouting them out as I find them. Any sort of fun little background details or anything. So at least you start out, you pick up and get your whip upgrades like we talked about. Then the zones themselves, so there's 6 of them. They don't have any names, so I'm just going to name them myself. And we'll call Zone 1 The Adventure Begins. So you start the castle along with your... again, this not being a walkthrough at all. There are tons and tons of better walkthroughs and speedrun videos and all sorts of stuff for this game, but I just want to go over all the enemies and weapons as I can. So one of the first ones you come across is the dagger, and that guy will just shoot straight in front of you. It tends to be the least talked about. Nobody wants the dagger. There's tons of other weapons better than that. That we'll get into, but you enter the castle and you get your Goomba boss, or your Goomba enemies, and it just starts throwing the zombies at you, which are just your one-shot zombies. But man, these things are coming out of both sides of the screens in all sorts of different amounts. So they can be hectic, but it's also here you can sit here and spam zombie kills and try to rack up some hearts and stuff like that. If you're trying to keep your ammo, there's also just a very few amount of secrets, and there's kind of secrets as far as some treasures, some hidden things that you can find that mainly just give you extra points, but there are some hidden things like health, the food throughout the game. So mostly you'll be just collecting lots and lots of hearts, and that's weird because it's the hearts you would think are health, but no, that's actually the ammo. So you'll start that counter up. And then you need those heart points as ammo to use for your sub-weapons. By pushing up and B, it'll deplete your little heart counter up there. Some of the other enemies in this first level / zone I think it's the only part of the game that has the Black Panthers. They're called Black Leopards, I believe, in the manual. Again, the manual has you'll get points as you're killing enemies too. And I forget how many points. It might be like 30,000 is a free life. So the points do get you free lives eventually. But mainly you're just going to want to make sure you keep your whip upgrade and your sub-weapon you want. So you got the Black Panthers, and also in World 1, and some of these worlds might mix up. I'll just try to throw in some enemies as we go through. But the really sweet one, the mermens. And not since frickin' Cabin in the Woods have I realized how terrifying the fishman, the merman can be. So everyone calls them mermen, says fishman in the manual, but these things develop their own legacy. So the mermans, they hop up out of the water, shoot fireballs at you for some reason. So you got, I mentioned the hearts and the ammo, the food and the health. It's just you'll randomly find some like pork chops and some hidden things there. Hidden in walls and stuff like that. Some of the ways to find secrets are real unique. You have to like kneel in one spot, or you have to stand in a spot, or you have to hit the brick like 10 times. All these kind of weird things, just for not a lot of secrets through the game. There's only one up in the game. Farther down, like zone 5 or something like that, you can get yourself a 1-up. So it's kind of random special stuff there. Make it through your 3 stages. They all look great. Again, on those details. They could have just went with brick background walls, but since they have brick crumbling, piles of bricks here and there. So it looks real good. And your first boss of Zone 1 is going to be the big giant Phantom Bat. And Phantom Bat going to do what Phantom Bat do, which is stay in a corner and then swoop down to the other corner and do like that U swoop, which is kind of classic with some bosses. But depending if you've got one of the other sweet sub-weapons, it's called a lot of different things. I think it's called a fire bomb in the manual. Yep, called Firebomb, and then it's called, usually everyone just calls it the Holy Water, because that's what it is, like a little jar of holy water you toss, and it creates a little, like, it does create a little firebomb, but it's cool because the fire kind of stays stationary for a little bit. So the thing about the holy water is, not only can you chuck it at an angle, catch some things in the air, it'll land on the ground and catch fire, but then enemies will, like, walk into that, and it will actually, like, freeze enemies in place. It will freeze bosses in place, and it seems to be the in general method with this entire game is using holy water on the bosses. It just freezes them in place, and they just die, like, without even getting close to touching you. I know a lot of people have a lot to say about the Grim Reaper boss, and but it seems like he's also, I guess it depends. I mean, he's going to kill you over and over again unless you have, I mean, insane skills or that holy water. But we'll get to the Grim Reaper a little bit later. So you beat the Phantom Bat, and we'll move on to our next section, Zone 2, and I'm going to call this one the Belly of the Beast. So there's a lot of strategy that people may not think with this game. It's not just a survive. It's not just a platformer, but there's strategy in knowing your enemies. So it's like you have to learn these enemies, each one. You have to know how they move, even though you can't control it, and you have to know how many hits they take. In order to make it through this game, you have to know, like, your ghost will take 2 hits. What are they? The knights take 2. So it's a couple of those kind of things you need to know because you don't want to get hit. The other big thing about this game is that gets talked about a lot is the knockback, and it's an insane amount of knockback when you're platforming. You will get hit and you will just get knocked right into that crevice, and you're done for. You'll get knocked through stairs, you get knocked, all that stuff when it comes to getting hit and knockback. So a lot of the game is avoiding getting hit. You can, the enemies will respawn, but they can also kind of despawn if you manage to, like, scroll them off of the screen. So those are other methods as well. But, when you talk these old NES games, they're not just making it through. It is strategy with knowing your enemy, essentially, there. So Zone 2, Belly of the Beast, I just call it that, just because you're getting deep in the castle now. This one's got some new stuff. It's got, like, the platforming kind of spike things coming down from the ceiling you have to avoid. But we'll talk some new weapons and some new enemies as well, because now you might be able to pick up the axe. And that guy's just a sweet, big arc, big axe. It'll cut through a bunch of enemies if the axe managed to follow the path of all them. And some of the enemies, you've got your bats. What game is not going to have your vampire bats swooping down at you? The ravens are worse. They're real sporadic. But your bats flying just kind of across at you. But you've also got knights now, kind of ancient, knights in armor. They take a couple of hits. They move kind of slow. Those are your basic black knights, I think, to start. And then also, finally, we've come to it, the Medusa heads. And those are talked about as much. It's always the Medusa heads. It's always the knockback. And it's always the stairs and always the falling like a pile of cement, or all these things tied to Castlevania. But it wouldn't be a Castlevania pizza without all those toppings on it, so we just got to take them. The Medusa heads are they're rough. It's hard if you got a flow and you're good, but it's like if you stop for a second and now you've got a Medusa head coming out of the left or the right that you weren't expecting to make that jump or anything like that, then they can be real tough. They'll knock you out. If you try to stop and fight them, then you're just going to end up with more Medusa heads all over the screen. So those are notoriously annoying for good reason. A couple of other items in the game you might come across is the invincible jar. It's called the invisibility jar, but it makes you invincible. And that is it's for 2.5 seconds. So it's pretty underwhelming as far as coming across that guy. And other than that, you've got sometimes you'll find the rosary beads, which is like the cross-looking necklace thing. And that's just a screen killer. So it'll destroy all the enemies on the screen. Kind of a couple of rare things you might come across. And other than that, let's move on to our boss of this section, the big old Queen Medusa head. And I really like that boss level. It's got like the cathedral kind of stained glass windows in the background. So just all these themes that Nintendo's doing. It's hard to do like religious themes in games. You don't want to offend certain people. So it was really, again, just cool that they were doing it back then. You got all these things coming out, even though, Medusa is like a Greek mythology monster. Like, it's still cool. Just bring it all out there, throw it all out together. This is a fight where I usually have the stopwatch. So the stopwatch is, it looks like, exactly like it says, like a little stopwatch, and this one will stop time. It'll stop enemy actions, like the fireballs will freeze in air if they're shooting fire at you, one of those kind of enemies. So the stopwatch is easy, at least on the Medusa fight, because you use it, the boss stops, and you can just crack the whip on her face over and over again. I don't know any other methods to that. I've always just ended up with the stopwatch at that point. Sometimes I'll use the stopwatch on the bat too, although the Phantom Bat, that's tougher. So you can have it's usually easier on the Phantom Bat with like the axe. I believe I usually use the axe on him. So take out your big Medusa head. And then again, after every boss, it'll drop like an orb that refills your health, but then all your heart points go away. And you keep your upgraded whip and your weapon to start the next level with. So that's where like some weird strategy can come in. Like if you're not starting a certain world with your whip and sub weapon you need, then you might as well just start the game over. At least I was having those kind of problems. Every time you beat a level, Simon walks along the map there, kind of shows you where you're going. Nothing too fancy or detailed there, but it's cool. It's a map. So when it comes to this game, like I was saying with knowing your enemy, and like I talk about in a lot of old platforming NES games, or what I tell my kids, like it's easy. You got to memorize it. This is where the enemy is going to pop up. This is what he's going to do. You bounce on him. You make it past him. And I find it to be very different in like a Mario, obviously, or even like a Mega Man game when it comes to memorizing a game and making it through the level, because this game kind of takes that concept and just like throws it upside down on its head, because you cannot memorize where the Medusa heads are going. It's going to change depending on what direction on the screen you're facing. So the enemies are so random, it makes it almost impossible to memorize them. And whether that was by design, between like your Medusa heads are all over the place, your zombies spawn all over, your fishmen, your mermen usually are spawning in the same spot, but then they're jumping around and moving, and then like your white skeletons throwing bones in kind of different places. So there is some consistency. Oh, and then there's the freaking hunchbacks. We'll get to those little monkey jumping things. So just sporadic enemies. So it's just interesting that they went that route. So let's make it to Zone 3, Bridges of Doom. Lots of platforming here, but we're getting some different backgrounds. It's looking sweet. It's like you can see like you're crawling through the castle, so you can see like through windows like the background of the castle like coming up and stuff. It looks really cool. There's tons of like moss covered statues and things there. Some of the enemies, like I've mentioned, are the skeletons. Your basic white ones right now are just moving sporadically, throwing bones at you. You've got the ghost. Careful, those will come off out of nowhere. They take 2 hits, and you want to get those guys cleared quick, because they stay on you like a freaking moth on a light. Like they're just hovering around you. So get rid of ghost if you see them, because they will just hug you and love you and never let you go. Also, we've got the raven. Those are the worst. They blend in with the background, so sometimes you won't catch them right off the bat. No, not the bat, raven. But then they move in weird, like diagonal. You really can't tell where they're going to go. Like there's not memorizing with these guys. That will go under you, above you, and then they'll do some weird diagonal stuff. So watch out for those guys. But maybe you'll come across one of the other sweet weapons in the game, and that is the boomerang, or the cross is what it looks like. And that's sweet because it will, fly across the screen and then come right back to you in a straight line, hitting enemies both ways. So that's what's cool, and it seems like a lot of people, that's their favorite. I see a lot of mix-up between people liking the boomerang or liking the firebomb, the holy water. Not a lot of love for that dagger. But some of the other things you may be able to pick up in the game we haven't talked about yet is the double shot and the triple shot. These are hidden along the way, and it'll be a Roman numeral 2 or Roman numeral 3, and that gives you the ability to use your sub-weapons either twice in a row or 3 times in a row. So you're only able to have like one firebomb on the screen unless you have the double shot or triple shot. Excuse me. It doesn't really affect the stopwatch at all. So that's just the one power of the stopwatch. But again, more things. These are some of the things you have to hit a block 10 times for it to appear, or it's going to be in some of the secret spots. So again, in number 3, you're doing a lot of like platforming across these things. There's a really cool spot in what is it? One of the stages, I think towards the end of Zone 3. Where you're along like the bridge up top, and you can see like the actual clock tower in the background of where you're making your way towards where Dracula is back there. So just more sweet background stuff I enjoy. We'll move on to the next one once we talk about our boss of this level. These ones might be considered some of the easier bosses, but it's the mummies. There's 2 of them. They throw freaking bandages at you, but there's a spot where you can kind of stay above them. If you don't break the brick away, there's like a pork chop there or something. If you don't break that brick, you can stay right on top, and you can kind of whip them and jump back up to safety. But I've also seen, just because I end up watching speed running videos and stuff, I see people just go straight for the lower corner, and then they duck there and just whip away at them. But you don't see anywhere. These first 3 levels, these first 3 bosses, it's after this when I feel like the difficulty kicks up in World 4 here. So yeah, World 4, I mean, it really picks up the difficulty. I'm going to call this world the Pit of Despair, because it starts out with you just falling deep into the bowels of the castle now. And I find a lot of the strategy of the game, besides knowing your enemy, is the strategy of staying buffed, like keeping your weapons, keeping your whip upgrades. Like I said, it can get to a point where you might be wanting to game over so that you can start the level with the right power-ups and when you're not wasting stuff on whip upgrades and things like that. So there is a strategy, I guess, to be said there, as far as maybe there's certain points of the game where start to know the game well enough where you're just like, I just need to start over. There's also a really weird part in Pit of Despair where it's got like these, it's got some platforming across, I guess, like some water because there's mermen jumping out, but there's like these bone skull kind of graphics that, for me, it looks like land, looks like something you can walk on, but you can't, so you'll fall right through it. So don't try to land on the pile of freaking skeletons out there. Some of the things you'll find in Zone 4 are the eagles / hunchbacks. You saw them earlier in the game, but now you've got eagles just dropping them, and these things just kind of dart around, again, sporadic. They just program them that way. They dart around like monkeys, and if you're not just getting them right on the ground, as soon as they drop, they will just attack you like crazy. It's one part of world you're like back outside. And again, the graphics look really sweet, just busted kind of pillars and that kind of feel to it. But then you also come across your first big bone dragon guy, and he's kind of like a mini boss. He's like the big bone dragon. He's stuck to the wall. There's a bunch of them coming up. You want to keep your distance. You can, take out the fireballs. They shoot at you, but you want to keep your distance. Keep whacking them in the head. They'll tend to drop extra points, extra hearts, all those kind of things. You'll also start to come across some red skeletons. Those guys, unlike the white ones, they'll do your bones from like Mario. They'll kind of fall into a pile of bone and then pop back up after a couple of seconds. And then again, there's like bonus items and treasure. You'll have to look those up to find. Some of them are pretty unique. Other than that, you make it to a pretty sweet fight because it's now we're like monster movie stuff again. And it's Frankenstein and Igor. And there's a lot of different methods to this one as well, as far as taking out, avoiding Igor, hitting Frankenstein. But this is definitely one of the levels, one of the bosses where you got your firebomb. You just keep racking him in the corner and he doesn't even move. You can also kind of use your whip to keep him at bay, I guess, as it were. Keep pushing him so he's not coming at you, but then you're avoiding Igor jumping all over the place. So it's a cheap method. If you got that holy water and you got plenty of hearts, then you can tend to take Frankenstein out pretty quick. We'll move on to Zone 5. I'll call that the Dungeons of Doom. Really cool background stuff now. You've got the chains hanging in the background and all the kind of cages and stuff. You feel like you're in the castle dungeon, just piles of bones everywhere. And it just feels real. It's just the religious undertones of the game. They go so well with it. Probably why it ended up being so popular, because it's just the aesthetic. Even in this NES 8-bit game, you feel like a holy warrior, like you are fighting against demons. You're fighting against evil, and again, it was really cool just to have that as a video game in 1987. The horror genre has become a lot more since then. And this is, really at the beginning of it. Other than that, on some of the NES games, what were you getting? Some of the weirder ones, Maniac Mansion, some of the oddball ones like The Uninvited. And you weren't just getting a lot of horror games back then. So I can't stop talking about it. I find it fascinating. So Dungeons of Doom, I talked about those bone dragons coming out of the wall. They're also in like pillar form a lot earlier in the game. I'm just trying to spread out all these enemies here. Those are the two dragon skulls sitting on top of each other, shooting fireballs out. So be careful with those guys. But definitely in level 5, you're going to meet the Axemen, the big, beefy freaking knights throwing axes at you. You can avoid them and just make it around them. If you do attack them, again, you got to watch out for those axes. You'll do some ducking, and those guys are a bit more intense. But this level's cool. Again, the dungeon feel to it almost feels like secret laboratory-like at some points. They switch the colors up on you. So you got like a lot of blues and purples here now that you're getting like into the castle. And your boss here, everybody knows him. Might be the most famous Castlevania boss, and we're talking death. We're talking the Grim Reaper. And watch a boss fight of this guy to just be a boss from an old Nintendo 8-bit game. This guy is freaking all over the place. The skice or whatever it is he's chucking at you are insane. So you've got, and again, more methods with him is that the firebomb, the holy water, will stun him in place. So if you get him in the right spot and you just chuck that, then he's gone. It's real easy. But if you're not, if you game overed or if you died, you don't have that firebomb, that's going to be quite a fight that I don't see myself making it through without some freaking firebomb, without some holy water. So we'll move on to the last zone, number 6. Climbing the clock tower, making our way up and up and up to our boy the Count up there. We were talking speed running a little bit. I just enjoy watching them. I enjoy the community. I love the way these guys try to keep things fair, talk about what kind of speed runs they should do for that, as far as any percent and all these things that I don't know the right terms for, but I'm going to figure it out because I find it interesting. So the any percent speed run fastest is 10 minutes, 38 seconds, and some amount of milliseconds, because they're counting milliseconds if they're trying to beat some records and stuff. So I also found it interesting that there's a record for whip only, and that's 12 minutes, 41 seconds. So there are people playing this game with the whip only and beating it way faster than I ever would. So back to the clock tower level. Here we're getting like lots of detail now because like you're jumping across all the gears and stuff, so you feel like you're inside of a sweet like ancient clock tower. So the aesthetic feels real good. And you're gonna have to fight some giant phantom bats again along the way. We already talked about the Axe Knight. I think we've hit up all the enemies here. I think I've talked about all the bosses. So you make it to your final count fight here. And then it's, again, a big difference. People have different techniques, different methods. A lot of people seem to like to use the boomerang because your first phase when you're fighting human Dracula, you're only able to hit him on his head, and he will shoot some fireballs out at you. So people can and will just keep chucking that boomerang across at head level while using the whip to take out the fireballs, but it's only one little health per hit on Dracula's head, so you got to keep at it there, but it's only the one thing he's doing, so he's reappearing in spots. You guys all know this if you've played it. And then so you break him and he goes into his second form, his super evil bat form, and again, like I said, like his body explodes into different parts, which I think reflects kind of the Castlevania 2. And then his second form is giant evil demon form. He's still shooting fireballs, but now he's kind of jumping sporadically at you. And it seems like a lot of people's methods there too, because if you can hit his fireballs perfect before they spread into 3, you'll take them all out while they're still in like one form. Other than that, you need to kind of get underneath him when he does his little jump as he goes back and forth across the screen. I believe it is one of those things that Firebomb will probably take care of as well. But I do like the boomerang method on this one because you can just keep... there's actually some movement to it, but I do think you can firebomb him to hell real easy too if you want to do it that way. But if you do it and you beat it, let's give you a little... You did it. You beat the game 50% of the way because this starts another... you beat the game, and it's almost like par for the course with Castlevania. Now start it again and it's harder and go beat it again. There's other games that do that. The game I'm playing next, the show we're doing next week does that too. I just went back to back with it's Halloween, so I guess I'm just torturing myself. So we'll get into next week's game in a minute. But you did it. You beat the first part unless you want to go back and rebeat it when it's harder. People do. I could see myself doing it too. I just run out of time. So it's like I could, if I just had more time, I feel like I would really get hardcore into some like speed runs. Like I said, I would want to just pick a game and perfect it. Like it sounds really interesting to me because I want to be one of those guys who is talking about certain glitches, or you watch speed runs and you see how like the whole crowd will like clap at a certain spot. And then I'm like, I want to know why, like they know someone made it through some tough glitch, and I want to know what that glitch is and stuff. So I want to do that too. But you do get a sweet cinematic ending at the end. You get some sweet movie-looking credits, so it's real cool there. But good job. Again, go beat it again if you want to. But that's Castlevania. It's sweet. We're going to talk some comments, and we're going to talk some awards, and let's do it.
Aren't you a little old for video games?
That man is playing Galaga. Thought we wouldn't notice, but we did.
What do all the things that you want to do?
Throw me a frickin' bone here. I'm the boss. Need the info.
I've lived in mortal terror that this would happen.
Get on with the ceremony.
All right, I'm getting on with the ceremony. Let's get into it here. I got some comments pulled from various sources here. Some on the posts I made about the game. Some people just talking about it in general. All right, what do we got here? We got Matthew. He says, my favorite NES game of all time. The Grim Reaper is definitely the hardest boss. Those skiffs are hard to avoid and hard to hit. The Firebomb is my favorite weapon, though it's a tad overpowered, followed by the Boomerang. So we went over all of that, Matthew. Thanks for the comment there. his favorite NES game of all time, and I can see why. Again, I always knew it was just like, it's the OG, it's classic, people are going to send some love to it, and I know Castlevania 2 kind of gets the hate, Castlevania 3 is supposed to be better. I want to burn through all those games. I played Castlevania 2 the most when I was a kid, and that was just the game we had, and we would just throw it in, and I don't even remember anything about it, but I want to play that one again as well. And then again, with just how I just thought it was like a black background and a couple of things here and there, but this thing is like playing a sweet old movie. It falls into that category of could be like an indie game, a remade indie retro game that kids would play, not knowing it's from the 80s, just thinking it's one of those cell phone games or something. So moving on, Steven says, boss-wise, I hate Frankenstein. If you don't lock him down right away, Igor just wrecks you. Level-wise, the hallway in the Reaper level causes emotional damage. Yep, that they don't make it easy to even get to the Reaper. You get beat up on the way and then have to face him. So he hates Frankenstein. And again, like I'm bad at it, but watching people do it right, they just know when to hit these guys with the firebomb. I mean, even your basic walkthroughs of this game online are like under 30 minutes, and those aren't people even speed running it. But I spend 30 minutes just running from Medusa heads myself. But moving on to Reese, he says, one of my favorites, the holy water is the best weapon. It freezes enemies and kills them before they can even move. Medusa, Frankenstein, Grim Reaper, and the final form Dracula can all be beat before they even move. And that's correct. And the Medusa one, again, you can use the stopwatch or you can use the holy water. Frankenstein, Grim Reaper, like the mummies being easy too. You can throw them in the mix. I mean, you could throw the bat in there too. I don't think you don't have holy water for the bat fight anywhere available, I don't think. But anyway, we'll keep moving. We got Boxing Joshing here. He says, this was always one of those impossible games, so I didn't try it until a few years ago, but it is really amazing. Every detail seems thought out, and the levels and enemies are meticulously planned around what your character is capable of. So that's true, and that comes along with that strategy of the game, the strategy of knowing your enemy and the strategy of keeping your buffs. Because, man, if you are so OP'd, if you got your whip cracked, you got freaking your holy water, and you're rocking like your triple shot, you got like tons of hearts, tons of life. I mean, that's where you want to be when you start a new world, not sad little no sub weapon spaghetti noodle whip Simon. He's a sad little Simon. So moving on, we got Negaflux here. It doesn't hurt that the soundtrack is an absolute banger, like they hit it out of the park on the first go. Have never beaten the game myself, however the soundtrack is one of my fave on the NES. I feel that. It does feel a lot better when you're getting beat around if the soundtrack's just cracking. So sweet comment there, Negaflux. Thank you. Count Blah here says, one of the things I love about original Castlevania is the difficulty curve. The game really nails ramping up the challenge in both environments, enemies, and bosses, culminating in that last epic boss fight. Anyway, I can highly recommend a lot of the other Castlevania games, especially 3 and Symphony of the Night. And 2 is a totally different kind of game, but still kind of has a special place due to nostalgia. What I really love is that they continue to try and evolve the gameplay each time with new gameplay mechanics, even if they didn't always work out. So that's good to know going into this franchise, as I want to play through these, that they are trying new things. And yeah, sometimes they don't work. That's what Mario does. He tries a new thing every time, and it's what like keeps it fresh. They could put out just Mario games, I'm sure, but it's trying the new things. I think I even read too that like the developers at Nintendo, they essentially, when it comes to their IP and how they make games, that one of the developers was saying that they come up with the gimmick first. They come up with the gimmick itself, and then they find the IP that fits it. So that's a weird way to do things, but I guess it kind of makes sense. So they come up with what the Wonder Seed kind of weird level mechanic and decide it goes in a Mario game. It makes me wonder then if for like the Switch 2, if they came up with all the DK level breaking kind of mechanics, and then where they're like, oh, well, I guess it would fit a Donkey Kong game, so now we have Donkey Kong Bonanza. So it's weird they come up with like the gimmicks. I mean, that's probably not 100% their method, but I found that interesting. And I do like you talking about the difficulty curve, because I mentioned that too. It's how it's like levels 1 through 3 are pretty, I mean, I'd say pretty breezy, because I've done them freaking 100 times now, those first 3 levels, trying to make my way through this game. But it is one thing where it's like, you know, you've got a perfect run. You're not, you know, if you're like me, you're not speed running, but you're like, all right, I got everything I want and need here and all my health. And then it just takes one wrong Medusa head to just take you out. Everything's trash now, your whole run. But that's if you like it, then you're like me and you're starting over again and jamming out to the music. We got Monkey Tamer here. He says, I've still got my original NES cartridge. I played through it last year on the Steam collection and forgot how tight the design was. The last level still kicks my ass. Some of those enemy patterns are brutal. The first time I made it to Dracula, I barely had any life left. Yeah, but that's how this game went for me too, where it was like a little farther each time. Where it was like, okay, I finally made it to like the mummy fight, got a couple hits in and died and start over. And then this next time it's like, oh yeah, I made it to the mummy fight and now I have 3/4 health. Like, let's do this. Don't frickin' pick up that dagger they drop at the mummy fight if you got yourself some holy water or something cool. Another thing I didn't even mention in this game that I mentioned in like other episodes, as far as the Castlevania issue of having what you want and hitting a weapon and picking it up before you have a chance to avoid it. And now you lost the sweet power up you wanted, just like the frickin' game I'm playing next week as well. We're getting there. Have you guessed it yet? It's not a Castlevania game, but it's very frickin' Castlevania-like and insanely tough. And you also have to beat it once and then beat it again to actually beat it. So there's all my hints. We'll get there soon. Mr. Mandrill here says, last comment, Mr. Mandrill, I don't care much for the Castlevania series. I've been recommended Symphony of the Night many times, and I've tried it, and it just doesn't grab me. But the original one, oh boy, easily one of my favorite games ever. I'm so happy the game is still being appreciated. The second one was a bit too much for me, kind of like Zelda 2, but the third is a pretty good sequel with very much the same spirit. But for me, the original game is like one of the elemental games, you know, like Tetris, video game royalty. You have to play it and listen to the banger music to understand. So you're going to get, that's a good comment. You're going to get a clap. You're going to get a Fry talking.
Take my money.
And you're going to get some ninja rap. And Navi.
Hey, listen.
All right, we're back.
Listen.
Shh, stop it. Okay. No, real good comment. It's like a legacy game. This is one, it's kind of how this podcast works. I will tell you this game to play the NES Castlevania. If my kids are listening to this someday, maybe someday I'm gone, my kids are burning through my podcast, listen to this episode and then go play Castlevania, because it's great. So let's move on here. We're going to talk, I guess we'll get into awards. I've got a lot of individual kind of, I'm all over the place with my awards this week. I couldn't figure out where I wanted to place some things, but we're going to take a look and see what you guys think as well. Let's go award number 1. That's going to be the Metal Blade Award, and it's going to go to the best weapon to play with. And you've already heard me talking about them. So how do we come down to the best weapon to play with? Let's take a look. Number 1, take your dagger, just throw it in the dumpster. It's mid. Nobody wants the dagger. So we're looking at, because you've heard me talk about it. You know it's going to be between the holy water, the cross, and maybe the stopwatch thrown in there. So we'll get rid of the dagger. We'll get rid of the axe. I like the axe. It's got the arc to reach up there and stuff, but it's not gonna get you through some of these bosses. We'll put stopwatch in 3rd place. I mean, it's good, but it's also, if it freezes a boss and you can't reach to hit them, then you're just gonna get hit anyway. I use it sometimes, but barely make it through. Besides, definitely the Medusa fight's easy with it. So we're moving to the cross, the boomerang, or the holy water, the bomb. The cross has the back and forth. The holy water's got the afterburn, the one the enemies can walk into. Between the two, between the speed runs, between I guess just owning this game, it's going to have to be the holy water. And it's the one everyone's using. It's the one all the speedrunners, all the cool kids in class are using. So the holy water is going to take that Metal Blade award. Next up, award number 2, the Challenger Approaching Award. The worst enemy to fight. Enemy or boss. Let's take. We'll throw in. I guess if you call it a cheat, we'll include the holy water cheat. If you can do it in the game, we're not gonna avoid it on the awards. So there's a couple of things I'm gonna throw a shout out to the mummies, just because they roadblocked me for a while, and not so much the mummies themselves. It's just restarting that particular level in Zone 3 with your spaghetti noodle and no sub weapons. Really sucks. So I'm going to shout out them, or you just end up with a dagger by the time you get to the mummy fight anyway. But I guess you can take them out of your whip if you're good. And shout out to the stairs, of course. I had to throw the stairs in the mix as an enemy. Not as bad as maybe when I was a kid. Or not as bad in general. Once you know that that's how they work, you can't jump on them, you can't jump off them, all these things, you go through them. If you get knocked back through them and all these things, then you just kind of deal with it. We're going to throw the Medusa heads in the mix because those are notorious as being annoying and tough, and again, can just ruin a playthrough you're doing. A speed run, it could ruin those. It can ruin however you're set up for your bosses. And then we're going to throw the Grim Reaper in the mix, the notorious hardest, Death himself, causing tons of deaths, but can also just be annihilated easy with the holy water. The stairs can be avoided. The mummies are probably pretty easy. So the one enemy, you can't cheat your way through it. You can't cheat your way bouncing around all the Medusa heads. So the Medusa heads are getting the award there. If you can't avoid it, you're not going to holy water yourself through a big line of Medusa heads. The little ones, not the boss. So those are getting the award there. And award number 3, I've got a lot of nominations for. The Sonic's Idol Animations Award. This is going to be for my favorite little detail in the game. We've got a couple here. There were a lot of secrets to get, and I forget which one it is, but I know there's a point where you have to kneel, essentially duck for a couple of seconds for a secret to pop up, and I think that follows through some of the other Castlevania games, so I think that's cool as far as you have to stop and say a prayer essentially and this item pops up. The castle keep in the background, I believe in Zone 3, that shows the clock tower back there, is really cool. I love foreshadowing. There's a skill when you fall down into, I think, Zone 4. It's where you fall down and start the level falling through a tunnel. And right at the bottom is a pile of skeletons. And I don't know if that was on purpose because the skeleton piles are throughout that level. But just right there next to you is a pile of skeletons. And I thought that was cool if it was on purpose. If not, I just think it's neat that you fall down and you're starting your journey, but you fall down and there's just a dead pile of skeletons next to you, like the last guy who tried it or something. I think all the secrets are cool in the fact that they're unique. There's the one at the very beginning of the game, or if you jump over the entrance, a treasure pops up, you jump back over, you can collect it for points. So there's just the secrets are kind of weird there with the destroyable walls and things. I love the details in the Tower of the Count as you're making your way up to that fight, the clock tower. Or the part right before the fight, you can kind of keep bouncing screens if you're trying to stock up on ammo and stuff. You can go down and back up these stairs. There's just a big moon in the background as you're making your way up the clock tower. So I thought that was cool. And I I guess it's a detail. I like the infinite continues as far as just restarting you out in that world. And there's no password or anything in this game, but that's okay if you make it to there. Just leave your Nintendo on and just put a little piece of tape over that power light, and your mom won't think it's going to blow the house up if you leave it on overnight, because it won't. So the winner there, it's going to go to the Kneeling for Secrets, just because I believe in future games that was a big part of it. And again, it just fits kind of the religious undertones of this holy warrior. You have to pray. You have to stop the game. You have to kneel for 10 seconds in certain spots in this and future games. And I just think that's really cool and unique, especially if you don't know how to do it and you just kind of discover that. Reminds me of the Earthbound secret, or I guess the Earthbound part what is it? There's a part in the Earthbound game where you have to just like stand still and do nothing for like 30 seconds or something to open something up. And it was like hard because you didn't realize that that's what the game wanted you to do. Just something weird and unique. So sending a little love out there. Let's get into some ratings for this game. We are going to talk gameplay, visuals, music and sound, and awesomeness. And it's going to be some high numbers here. Gameplay, you're getting a 9 out of 10. Excuse me there. I don't care about the stairs. I don't care about the knockback. The challenge is reasonable. When a challenge, like I said, can frustrate you to where you want to turn something off, but then you're back on it and like a few minutes later, that is successful to me. You've made a successful game. Like, yes, you should get frustrated and want to walk away for a little bit. But it's that coming back. It's that one more time. So you're going to get a 9 out of 10. Forget all your weirdness with your weighing 1,000 pounds. You just keep getting heavier as I go along on the episode. But forget all the weird part. Now it's just part of how it's part of Simon. It's part of Castlevania. Mario bounces off of enemies. Simon falls like he weighs 2,000 pounds. So anyway, visuals. It took some chances with its dark themes, especially in North America. You weren't, it's big in Japan, these kind of things, these kind of, death isn't hidden so much. It's talked about, embraced a lot, I think, in their culture versus, what American parents are trying to hide from their kids over here in the 80s and 90s, especially back in, was it early 90s, whenever the stupid satanic panic in this country happened. I can see games like this getting flack for it. But anyway, you're getting a 10 out of 10 on visuals. I didn't know you were so freaking gorgeous, and it's all those Halloween designs and things I like, and scary, spooky things that are, I like them when they're like simple like that too, but also you know what it is. So I love the 8-bit designs. I can just keep talking about it, but we'll move on. You're getting a 10 out of 10. Music and sound, you're getting a 10 out of 10. All the tracks are great. Let's play a little snippet again of the one I love so much. See, it sounds very, it's almost Mega Man like. And then it gets right there, like dark themes right there. So you're getting a 10 out of 10 because all your tracks are awesome. You even gave them sweet, cool names. Much appreciated there. Again, amazing to this day. They're remixed and reused everywhere, made into sweet techno songs, all sorts of stuff. So 10 out of 10 there. Awesomeness. I mean, you're a legacy game. You're an OG. There is a genre called Metroidvania because of games like Castlevania. So you're going to get a 10 out of 10. And it's like I was like, okay, and when I decided to do this game, I'm like, yes, October, yes, spooky games. We'll go OG NES. What's scary on that one? Like I said, I was looking at Maniac Mansion. You got your Friday the 13th and your Nightmare on Elm Street and your kind of weird or dumb games. But even like the first Zelda is spooky to me, just from being young and playing those dungeons by myself in the dark. It's like a 6-year-old. It could be freaking scary. You go do it. So it's a 10 out of 10 there. It's just a legacy, and I like to see all the love that people have for this game. I didn't realize it was so celebrated as much as it is. So I want to be one of you guys celebrating Castlevania too. So lots of 10s, lots of 9s. Gosh, does this game rule? Yes, of course. It's still amazing today, still relevant. It's got lots of sequels. It's got a Netflix series. It is a game you must play. I think the Netflix series is a prequel, a couple hundred years before this game. Again, video games and timelines, let me tell you. At least this one makes sense as far as the Belmont family, just taking on the mantle of constantly changing, the mantle of the vampire killer. So what are we talking next week? Let's let the torture continue, but let's turn up the graphics a little bit, and let's torture myself in 16 bits with another Metroidvania game. I'm going to take a run at Super Ghouls and Ghosts, and I am going to do terribly at it. I remember playing this game so much back in the day. Of course, probably just the first 2 or 3 levels. And again, it's another game that they want you to beat the whole thing to get a certain item, to then go back and beat the whole thing harder again to officially beat the game. And if I woke up in frickin' Jigsaw's torture chamber and was trying, I had to beat Super Ghouls and Ghosts twice to get out, then I'd probably just live. It ain't gonna happen. I'm gonna take a good full run at it. I know I'm not gonna be able to beat it twice. Anyway, that's next week. If you know Super Ghouls and Ghosts, it's gonna beat me up again, but that's all right. I'm here for it. We'll make our way to it. It won't be all platforming death games for me this month. We got a fun RPG coming after Super Ghouls and Ghosts. I can see my controller flying across the room already. But for now, let's put a nail in this coffin. Thanks again for listening to this week's show. I appreciate all you guys, anyone, whether you listen, whether you comment. I just like talking video games. So let's just keep it going. Hit me up, thatgamerules@gmail.com. It's time to go find some more fun Halloween stuff to do with the fam. Have you guys seen all the companies making Halloween buckets this year? Like, you got McDonald's, now you got BK, you got Dunkin' Donuts, and you're all going to make me waste my money on your freaking Halloween buckets. But anyway, so until next time, watch out for creepy stares. Don't invite any large fang people into your house, and stay spooky. I'll see you guys next week.